What's up, everybody? This is your boy B-Rob. And before we get into the podcast proper like, I like to introduce you to our new sponsor, Studio. Studio. Hope I don't get hit with copyrights for that. But I know you did the same thing as soon as I said Studio. Studio headphones, bringing you affordable, quality, fashionable headphones for a fraction of the cost of those high-end bullshit that you get in the store. Not because of my sponsor. I'm sitting here going to blow smoke up your ass or anything like that. But there's some quality headphones. I got the Regent headphones, the over-the-head set. You know, they're well put together. They're compact. And shit, if you got a fly-ass outfit, you can match them pretty well with it. Even Miss B-Rob likes them. And she don't like a lot of shit. She think everything is the same or whatever. That's why she can't tell the difference between DVD and Blu-ray. But that's par from the course. You can get an additional 15% off if you use the promo code 3RSHOW when you hit the checkout button over there on studio.com.
Here we go. You are now listening to Random Ramblings with Rob. Yay! Yeah! Look at it. Boom, 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 boom.
What's up, everybody? This your boy B-Rob, and I'm back with another edition of the Random Rambles with Rob podcast. First and foremost, I'd like to thank you, the listener, for coming back each and every week, or however you listen to podcasts. If you're a new listener, I'd like to say I appreciate you for tuning in for your first episode. Whoever referred you to me, give them a crisp high five virtually, or if you're in the same room, you can do that. Touch hand skins together and make a clapping sound and whatnot. And hey, welcome. I have a guest this week, and I don't know this guest. I mean, I don't know a lot of my guests that come on the show, but like, I really don't know this motherfucker. And I'm not calling him a motherfucker as in disrespectful like, but we shared a brief Twitter exchange, and I was just like, he kind of sounded like he know what he's talking about. So I want to talk to this dude in person, voice to voice, and pick his brain a little bit. So my guest for this episode is all one word, Tonicmole. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm hanging in there. And
all right.
Just like I was saying before we started recording and everything, I appreciate you for showing up and giving me your time this evening.
Oh yeah, no problem.
Now, the reason that you're here is, like I said just now, we had the briefest of Twitter exchanges on the internet, and it was over the freaking Disney proposal to Fox.
Oh, right, yeah.
I think it was like the 71.3 billion with a B dollars.
Yeah, and supposedly Comcast is supposed to come back, but who knows how long that'll take? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, do you know somewhat about, what a turnaround on something like this would be, or is just,
well, for the first time, because Comcast made their first, I think it was maybe 2 or 3 weeks before Disney came back with their proposal. So most likely it'll be something like that. So by next month or early next month or something, I would expect Comcast to come back, and I think most people are. Because it's almost Comcast needs Fox more than Disney does. So most people, because there was rumors that there was going to be $100 billion bid by Comcast possibly to try to just blow Disney out of the water. But however, markets change and Comcast might get cold feet. It's hard to say.
Yeah, I think Comcast is kind of late to the party, isn't it? Because like AT&T kind of absorbed DirecTV, so this whole other company now, Sprint and T-Mobile just merged into a new T-Mobile, and Disney has just been sucking up all the other things. It's becoming the Walmart of freaking the entertainment business.
Yeah, and it is kind of odd that, it was, everybody assumed, earlier this year, they assumed that this would be one and done. Disney buys Fox and it's over.
Yeah.
And then Comcast kind of just come out of nowhere with this. And the biggest dilemma is that Comcast is doing all cash bids, where they're just saying, here's this huge sum of money. Disney's is, and I haven't looked at what the actual breakdown of stock versus cash, but they're doing Disney stock plus cash. So the Murdoch family that owns Fox, it comes at some of it down to, do they just want an immediate payout that would be from Comcast, or Disney stock obviously could be worth so much more here in 5 years.
You know what's funny about that? It's just like you saying Disney stock, and you've ever been to Disneyland or Disney World?
No, I haven't.
Oh, well, they got a thing there called Disney dollars, and every time you say Disney stock, I think about Disney dollars. That would be that's kind of the balancing act, I think, because Comcast, even say they do $100 billion, depending on what the Murdochs want to do, because I looked it up, it was 2010 to now, Disney stocks increased by 500%. Shit.
And so say they give them $50 billion in Disney stock. Well, you can only imagine, we're talking trillion, over $1 trillion in 5 years, possibly. Now, to be fair, so many things have went right for Disney since 2010.
Yes.
With Marvel movies making $1 billion every time. Then and a lot of, especially my kind of the people I'm around, that's all comic books and that type of stuff, they don't realize there's more than just Marvel going on there. You have Star Wars also, but you also have their live action remakes of their old cartoons from the 90s and before.
Yep.
Those things are making over $1 billion a piece also. So they got these 3, 4, 5 franchises that just make $1 billion every time. And so that's sending that stock through the roof. It might hit where there's a kind of a terminal velocity of how much they could possibly, they just continue putting out movies and the stock kind of ceases. But I think that's part of the debate of Disney doesn't actually have to match Comcast necessarily, but because that stock could just be worth so much more.
Yeah. And I mean, it's like, with the people who are selling Comcast, it just really depends on what they ultimately want to do. I mean, they can take that cash and they can just go lounge up on the beach somewhere and not worry about nothing for the rest of their life. They can probably, their family for generations can probably live off of that $100 billion if they manage it right.
Yeah.
Or, if they try to freaking, venture out and do something else outside of Comcast after getting rid of Comcast, starting up another business, that stock could come in handy. But who knows? Yeah.
Well, see, and it'll be more of like Comcast just absorbs Fox, because Fox is now the family, like the Murdochs, they have no need for money or whatever, but the father, who's kind of in charge of the whole deal, he's I don't know, 120 years old or something. So for him, stock is, who cares? I mean, he's going this guy's on borrowed time already. And so it's really up to and it's, not to get too political about it all, but there is so much complexity to the whole deal that, a lot of people I talk to, they go, the X-Men is like, wow, there is so many layers to this beyond one thing. Disney owns the X-Men regardless of how this goes.
Yeah.
It's already theirs. This is a sheer waiting game for Fox to make a few stumbles on movies and heck, Comcast could say, you know what, and the companies that I should have looked this up because I don't want to say it and be wrong. Was it Universal who did, if you happen to know, the Hulk, the Incredible Hulk, or was that Paramount?
Oh,
one of them.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm thinking it's Paramount. Universal is who Comcast like movie arm, and since Paramount Paramount gave the Hulk to Marvel, they don't let them do solo movies, but they gave them characters. Sony gave Spider-Man. It could be where Disney doesn't even win the bid on Fox and still gets X-Men, so it might not. It probably doesn't matter.
Yeah, because wasn't it like that before? It was just like, all right, Marvel had all these licenses to give out. They gave Spider-Man to Sony. They gave X-Men and all them to Fox and whatever. And then they had a deal to where, all right, you have so many years to make X amount of movies. If you don't make X amount of movies in so many years, the character rights automatically default back to Marvel. So that's why they've been churning out so many Spider-Mans and all these X-Men movies and all that other shit. So it right back.
It was one of them was like it was right in the deadline, and maybe it was Spider-Man, and that's why they rebooted it because the rights will revert back. So that could be a thing. And then on the you have these tons of layers going on. Well, kind of like with the AT&T and Warner Brothers deal. There was controversy that is being held up because Time Warner owns CNN. Mm-hmm. And so the federal government with Donald Trump and stuff was trying to kind of hurt CNN. And they did make a very specific thing that they wanted CNN broken off from the deal at some point. And so there was that tone that there was maybe a little bit of animosity over the deal. That's not totally the deal, but you have all these giant things like that with, Fox being Fox News, and then Comcast is MSNBC. So there's a whole mess, but actually, I guess Fox News breaks off into its own thing. But I had a point to all that.
I know it's kind of confusing.
There's but those are just not needed to be gone into necessarily, but that's the additional layers that I find that whenever me and the people I talk to and stuff kind of talk about this on Twitter, they all the time kind of edge towards, what's Marvel going to do with the X-Men. And it's like, there's just so much more that goes into all of this beyond, just the X-Men necessarily. But I do remember. About when Marvel sold all those, they were going bankrupt in 1999, I think it was.
I remember that.
And they sold them for like pennies on the dollar. I looked at some of the deals, and they were, shocking how little money they got. We're talking a couple of $1 million for some of these characters, and and they were only left with the characters that nobody in their right mind would want to make a movie about. And because Iron Man and Captain America are huge now, but before 2008, when Iron Man came out, these characters were very unloved at that time. They were dead in the water. And so they kind of built something out of there, but they had to do it all without any of their major characters.
Mm-hmm. And it's just amazing, over the past, 10 years, what they were able to build. And then they just made it even more vast and larger whenever Disney paid what I think it was $2 billion to roll Marvel up into them. Yeah.
And unprecedented what they've built. And I'm a DC fan. Well, I say DC fan, pretty much just Batman. But that's my primary everything. But when I look at what the Disney Marvel has built, it's impossible. People can critique the movies or say, well, I prefer this or that or whatever. But as just a building something, if they had made one bad movie in this line, it would have derailed the whole thing. And any misstep can derail this whole gigantic thing. Because it's a house of cards they were building. Mm-hmm. And for them, now they have, they could release this year they could release the biggest bomb you've ever seen, and it wouldn't matter. But it's taken them a long time to get to that level. And but when I was a little kid watching Batman and Batman Returns and all that stuff, there would be you'd wait 3 years for the next superhero movie or longer, And now you got 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 a year, and all pretty dang decent.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's one Marvel movie that's out now that I like totally dislike. I mean, I like some more than others, but all of them are pretty good.
Yeah, I think like as far as like the MCU, Disney's movies, I have to go a long ways back. I think it was I'm the maybe only fan of Ang Lee's The Hulk. I didn't like The Incredible Hulk as much for some reason. I think it was Liv Taylor. Like it's almost like Botox or something in her mouth, so she couldn't enunciate the words. And I was like, why would you go on film like that? And B, who let her go on film like that? And maybe it's all in my imagination, but I remember it really messing with me on the whole movie. And Ang Lee's is weird and not and nonsensical in some ways. And maybe it's probably kind of like BVS, where I'm on the side that I didn't really like Batman versus Superman. Others fight me daily on it. Ang Lee's Hulk is probably a lot like that. I think we're seeing a few of those. The Last Jedi is like that, where movies are kind of divisive, so it's almost random which side you land on.
Now, The Last Jedi, what's your true feelings on that movie? Because everybody's sitting here talking about let's remake the motherfucker or whatever, but how do you feel about it?
Yeah. I thought it was decent. I really, really liked the Force Awakens.
Mm-hmm.
And because I did feel that J.J. Abrams had to get us back to square one, because the prequels happened and they were kind of awkward. So I really liked the Force Awakens to say, okay, this is Star Wars. We're back on the deal. And I went to Last Jedi, and my wife loved it. I liked it, but I can see some of the arguments, saying, against it.
Mm-hmm.
Not the hating it. That I find, I think there's a little bit too much toxicity overall towards, I think that a lot of fans are getting a little too, kind of tribal with DC, Warner Brothers, Marvel, and all these types of things, to where I'm starting to see a lot of people who they think that if they like a DC movie, they have to hate anything Disney does.
Yeah.
And, I think there's some of that. But when I watched The Last Jedi, I certainly could see that it wasn't as tightly wound movie as The Force Awakens.
Mm-hmm.
So I I'd been kind of studying this type of idea where I really had problems with Batman versus Superman. And so, however, when I went and saw it at the theater, that first half of the movie, I was really into it.
Yeah.
I liked the kind of the portrayal of Batman. Visually getting to see things that, I loved the Dark Knight trilogy, but they were very grounded. Batman didn't do anything like in the comics where he hangs from the ceiling or acts all creepy. And that first scene he's in when he's up in the corner.
Yeah, that was creepy.
He scuttles across the ceiling into that hole. And I was like, okay, that's the greatest thing I've ever seen. But then, it fell apart when he goes, if there's just a 1% chance that he's my enemy, I have to take it as an absolute something. And I was like, that don't make no sense. Everybody's got a 1% chance. Anyways, the whole thing fell apart with me. And then some people argue the Martha thing was the most absurd thing I've ever seen.
It was a big reach. It was a big reach.
Yeah, right. And turning it into the Super Friends immediately after, I was like, wow, no. Neither part was anything before or after that scene isn't the problem. It's the transition to them, to where suddenly Superman's like, hey, buddy. It's like, what? No, that's crazy. But when I came out of the theater, I was so conflicted, because I was like, wow, that was the worst ending I've ever seen to a movie. but I was really enjoying myself up until Batman decided to kill Superman for no real apparent reason. And so much later, I think it was earlier this year then, I was like, I'm going to sit myself down and watch that movie again, which I'd watched it again and just hated it all the way through all of a sudden. And so I forced myself to sit down and watch it and ignore what I already knew, like what was going to happen. And I was like, no, I can still enjoy that first 2/3 or 3/4 of the movie if I ignore that ending. And it was that I dissect every problem once something just pushes me too far. Once it jumps to the shark, I hate the whole thing.
Okay.
And I will hate that Batman kills people, and that I hate how depressing Superman was, and I don't like Lois Lane, and I don't like any of these things. When I didn't feel that way until it went too far. Mm-hmm. And so I found this interesting thing. So then when I liked a movie that was as divisive as BVS, which was Last Jedi, that really made me go, okay, I'm on the other side of this debate. There's almost equal amounts of people saying one thing or another. And when I watched Last Jedi, I was like, no, that there are things that happens throughout that if it's not too far for you, you'll love that movie with the Leia and what happens with Leia and all the story elements. You'll love it. Mm-hmm. But if it pushes you just a little too far, that your tolerance level isn't strong enough, you'll pick that thing apart, and it has plenty of things to pick apart. Even though I liked it, if I did the opposite of what I did with BVS, where I forced myself to enjoy what I could. Mm-hmm. On Last Jedi, I liked it, so I forced myself to not enjoy it.
Did you like find that shit that you really hate?
Right. And I was like, the whole beginning doesn't make sense. That, why don't they just do the things to save the people right off the bat? Mm-hmm. And all these things. And I could easily pick it apart.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, now if I watch it right now, I'll love it. So I wasn't convincing myself to hate it, merely understanding what's the difference between a movie like The Dark Knight that everybody goes, we all agree, we love it, versus Batman vs. Superman, where there's this, toxic. What was that movie come out in 2014 or something? And the level of fighting and feuding and toxicity has only increased since Batman versus Superman was released.
And that's the thing too. I mean, I like that movie. I like mm-hmm. the Last Jedi. I like Batman versus Superman. I mean, it's right here to my right side right now on my movie shelf. I mean, yeah. I mean, this is to me, because like I've said this before, when I watch a movie, I turn my brain off, and it's pure entertainment. I watch the movie, and I really don't think about all this stuff that people hate about it until I start hearing people talk about it. People bringing this up and bringing the Martha thing up. It's like me sitting there watching that movie the first time. I was just like, this is fucking cool because I'm actually getting to see Batman and Superman on the same goddamn screen. And more of a movie for me is like, I'm really into visual effects, because I mean, I'm the type of person to like really see special effects and be like, wow, I wonder how they did that, how they put that together and made it work like that, so like people hate or dislike Battlefield Los Angeles. They say it's a shitty movie, but I love that fucking movie because of the special effects,
Hey, I would argue that's a good movie.
This is a great fucking movie.
Yeah, and I think, there's expectation. And what I found, and also about Batman versus Superman, within DC Comics, there is, and I don't think this is as much with Marvel, and it's because of how their universes were built. Marvel Comics, if you like Iron Man, you most likely like Thor. Those characters have been merged together since the very beginning in a very, very fluid way. DC Comics has like two alternate universes. It is the Justice League universe, and then there's the solos. Mm-hmm. They don't make sense together. and you can't force them together. Batman by himself has nothing to do with the guy that's part of the Justice League.
Yeah, and
I kind
of see that. It's almost like how we are with movies and television. Like the Flash on the TV series has shit to do with the Flash in the movies.
Right, yeah. And like, well, for instance, Batman Solo is a lot more aggressive and dark, and he's a lot more troubled. And the personification of him is this very angry person who's struggling with his demons and all this. However, the Justice League Batman has nothing to do with that. He is purely he's a completely different personality archetype. He's anal retentive. He's the one with the least amount of emotion. He's like the Data or Spock of the Justice League.
You know what? I do notice that even in the animated incarnations of Batman as well. It's like, you get the Batman the animated series versus, whatever other iteration of a solo Batman cartoon versus the Batman you see in the animated Justice League thing. It's pretty much what you're saying. It's the same shit. It's like they're all different Batmans.
And I think you almost have to, when you're dealing with DC, Superman was really built for the Justice League. So he's usually kind of the same guy to some degree. Wonder Woman gets a little more aggressive when she's solo but it's still, she kind of transcends a little bit. But Batman has always had this as a character. He's two different people depending on what they need him to do. And so by himself, he's always much more aggressive, violent, and darker. And I think for me, that's where I felt the DCEU in general went wrong to some degree, because Batman versus Superman wasn't a terrible movie, and I liked Man of Steel. My problem with them was they're terrible. All of the movies are terrible together. That they're worth more by themselves than they are together. Marvel. Though people hate comparing them, it's like, what else are we supposed to do? But Marvel movies, they know that the whole is more important than the parts. And so and eventually they made it to where each part was worth more. But I didn't leave Thor going, that was the greatest movie I've ever seen, the first one. However, it was a perfect building block.
Yeah.
It just wasn't a great solo movie.
And that's what people fail to realize. I mean, I know that the Star Wars, the new movies that are out, is going to be a trilogy, but that second movie, The Last Jedi, it wasn't nothing but a building block for the finale if they're going to end with Episode 9.
Oh, and exactly. And it's kind of funny. I'm semi-old. I'm 37. So I watched Empire Strikes Back in the theater with my grandma. And I think it was like the first movie I ever seen. And so I grew up with the franchise. And now I watched it. I probably didn't even know what the hell was going on because I was 3 or 4.
Same.
But when I was just slightly older, a few more years older, I watched the Star Wars in order. And I really remember, anyways, I watched the Return of the Jedi. I was devastated when that movie just freaking ended. And now younger people now, they just binge through them and go, oh, those were great. It's like, you had to be there.
Yeah.
Han Solo was in carbonite, and you were given no reason to believe he was not going to be dead. And that movie ended on a terrible note. Like, everything was just crap. And you assumed there was going to be some resolution with Darth Vader or something, but not really. So it's funny that the Return of the Jedi was so much like The Last Jedi, that it had that same tone, that where it was the middle of a story. It did not have a beginning or an end. And as a kid, it left me with that, where I was kind of like, you didn't end your damn story. And of course, then the third one in the trilogy made it all great. And I feel like people don't understand what it's like to watch a Star Wars trilogy in real time. And so some of the younger generation might not understand that this is kind of how it goes.
Yeah.
The middle one's not going to wrap it all up because, well, hell, they got a third movie to sell. Did you see Solo?
Yeah, I'd seen that. I think the weekend after it came out, so like a week after.
Yeah, I think I did too. Now my wife loved it, and I was kind of I thought it was good. I still feel like now mainly I think that Disney, their biggest lesson is I think they're smothering themselves. You had Infinity War, which was also them just steamroll over Solo, and I think we're going to see more and more of that to where even Disney is suffocating themselves.
Yeah.
With just too many movies in a row. Various franchises and all this.
It's almost like the thing with Assassin's Creed. They would come out with Assassin's Creed every freaking year, and people were getting tired of it. Then they took like that 1 year off, and they came out with Origins, and now they're going to have Odyssey next.
Yeah, it's exactly like that. I was the biggest Assassin's Creed fan ever. I loved that game, and the second one, I loved the little puzzle pieces of the video that you would unlock of the kind of like the Adam and Eve thing, and it really just launched my imagination. And I was like, "This is the greatest game franchise ever." And then 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, I was like, "Okay, never mind." it just because I think I was still playing 2 when the 4th one came out. And I was like, come on, and I got so far behind, I just didn't even want to bother with it no more.
Yeah,
and I think I played 3, but
I didn't even play 3. I lived 3 vicariously through a roommate. I just watched them play. I never physically put my hands on the controller and moved that character around. I just watched somebody else play the whole thing because I didn't want to do it.
Well, yeah, I'm usually with me and my wife, a lot of times, I'll play the game, well, mainly survival horror games and stuff like that, Resident Evil. And, she'll just watch those. And now she was the more of the Assassin's Creed player though. Cause she played 1 and 2, and then I think she played 3 and some bizarre, I think it was a port of off of the Vita or something that was on the console. She played that horrible thing. But, yeah, she kept with it a lot longer than I did.
Did you what you think about the Resident Evil 2 news? You know, the remaster or the remake or whatever that they did for it.
Oh, it's the greatest thing that's ever happened to me in my entire life. When I graduated high school, not to rewind needlessly for no reason, but when I was a kid, I really didn't get to have video game consoles. I think when I was 14 or 15, I got an NES. Now at that point, it was 10 years old. But so when I was 18, my girlfriend at the time, that is now my wife, she bought me a PlayStation 1 for my graduation or something, and with Resident Evil, the first one. And this was right after it came out. That thing I was obsessed with it. And then I've been obsessed with Resident Evil ever since then. Mm-hmm. But even though I've loved every Resident Evil except for 6, with 4, I loved 4, but I miss that feel of Resident Evil 1 and 2, and 3 to some degree. Yeah. I miss that kind of haunting, slow-paced strategy and stuff. And so when they said the Resident Evil 2 remake, I was like, this will be the greatest thing ever. And it is. I guess it is more like 4. They say with camera angles, but from all the reviews, it sounds like they've emerged the suspense and stuff of Resident Evil 7. And so I'm pretty amped about the whole thing. Yeah, I haven't been excited for. I play a lot of video games, but it is like I haven't felt that much hype in quite a long time. So that's kind of refreshing.
Yeah, I haven't. I think the only Resident Evil game I've beat all the way through is Code Veronica.
Oh yeah. Oh man. But that one is so good. Mm-hmm. I think, and it's one of those, those things in life where it just, random thing that pops into your head all the time. And I think about that whole time you're playing that game, and there's the kind of the weird kind of creepy guy and his sister. And then you finally, it's like a Norman Bates thing to where that whole time he was talking to himself. She's a creature or something, but he's pretending to be her and stuff. That was an excellent game. And I'm excited for Resident Evil 2 because I want to see classic Raccoon City swarm zombies in a lot better detail than a PlayStation 1 game. And and for me, Resident Evil 1 is perfect as the HD kind of remake that originally was on the GameCube. That's the perfect version, so I don't think that one needs touched. But Resident Evil 2 and 3, it always bothered me that you couldn't see that in really good detail, because after that they moved on to all the crazy things and the heads popping with the little plant things in them. 4 and 5, and then who knows what 6 was. And 7 got back to it a little bit. But so I'm very excited just to see that world, but in a much detail.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not against that stuff. It's just like what I really like about the concept of it or whatever, like to remake something, like when they took The Thing and they remade that. I thought the remake was a damn good movie, and it's just the fact,
it was good.
Yeah, it's just the fact that it wasn't even like the actual movie; it was the prequel to the the original movie. And it's just amazing what they were able to do with the visual effects versus the practical effects. I mean, whenever you can fit practical effects in there, I think you should do it. But for what they had and what they did with that remake and the CGI and everything, I thought it was a damn good movie. And that's what I want. Cause like they have movies that came out in the 70s and 80s and stuff, and they didn't have the technology that we have now. And whenever, that's kind of what I want to see. Cause like they redid RoboCop. I thought the effects in that was pretty cool. They, updated another fucking Terminator, which I thought it was going to be bad from, just knowing that it was another motherfucking Terminator, but I watched it and it was actually good. Just the Star Wars stuff, how they, what was crazy about the prequels, I thought it was funny that like, all right, the original 3, what the 4, 5, and 6 were made in like the 70s, the 80s time frame.
Yes. So, 79 to 84, I think.
Yeah. So those movies, in the grand scheme of things, were after the prequels, which were later on in the 99, 2000-ish era. So they had to incorporate all these visual effects because, the technology is, leaps and bounds from what it was in the 70s and 80s, and still try to make that movie look older than the original ones. And it's fucking crazy.
And that's where I think J.J. Abrams succeeded to where Lucas struggled, was how to incorporate the modern technology into Star Wars without changing what Star Wars inherently is. Because I think that some franchises can morph into any era and it really doesn't change the overall feel to some degree. And I think the prequels were odd because even the design of things, the technology they had, kind of got this sleeker version, even though it's supposed to be older. And he really went hog wild with the CG and stuff. Yeah. And where J.J. Abrams said, well, the design has to stay the same because this isn't that long after, and so that has to stay the same, but we can reproduce it with modern technology. And they actually did an amazing amount of practical effects. Yeah. With the creatures in the background, and that all helped quite a bit. And I was just thinking about this because, depends on the movie and what type of effects they used. But like, I can watch Batman and Batman Returns, and it's just as amazing as when I first watched it. Like, it's kind of this very timeless thing. And in some ways it drives me crazy that Michael Keaton's bat suit doesn't look terrible. Because I'm like, what happened? Who was the genius that come up with how to put a man in a bat suit that evidently just retired? Because I love the Dark Knight trilogy. Rises was, you know, it ended it was good enough. But the first two, I loved them. And as a whole, they're all great. But my goodness, what was that all about? In Batman Begins, it's like whoever did that had never created a costume like that before. It was the most bulkiest you could possibly be. Yeah. And Warner Brothers had already done 4 Batman movies in which they were learning, because Michael Keaton was really good that there's some of those actors that really take the effects into account. You know, they know that it's going to be there and they find ways to work around it. Peter Weller, who played RoboCop, he trained as a mime. And you don't even think about it watching it, but that's just a guy in a big plastic suit. Yeah. That's not actually a robot. But his movements of how he'll move his head first and then his torso and then his lower half, that was all a performance, an amazing performance. And Michael Keaton in the bat suit, when he's kind of like when the Joker is in that helicopter flying up and Batman blowing up the chemical plant, and the light shines on Batman, and he just spins his entire body around. It looks amazing, but he had to because he can't move his body. Yeah. He can turn his head. Half of the great Michael Keaton performance as Batman was because he could not turn his head. And so you had this very kind of stoic Batman that his whole body shifted. Like it was the most commanding character ever. Yeah. And
they kind of would reference that in when they was building the bat suit in Batman Begins. He's like, you know, I can't move my head, you know, and they adjusted the suit.
Yeah, it was because in Batman Returns, it's a little more noticeable because they finally said, well, Michael Keaton said, I need sometimes to be able to turn my neck. And they made 2 costumes, and it always drove me crazy as a kid because you can tell when he's wearing his turn my head costume over his normal one, and it would be cut to cut, you know. And when he's turning his head or something, suddenly it's this real smooth, like clingy mask that's like has a neck in it. That's like a lot narrower so that he can turn his head. And then it cuts directly back to the kind of bulky mask that he had before. And then they kind of continued to ignore it. They just kind of said, well, we'll make certain suits that are a little more, and nobody will notice. And we'll just kind of shift between suits when you need to turn your neck.
Who's your Batman?
What's that?
Who's your Batman?
I'd still have to say it'd be Bale. It was just the overall thing, you know, and I almost feel like it's probably more the story that makes him like the definitive. He was the actual Batman to where, you know, I have my one rule and all that type of stuff. Because even as a kid, it bothered me that in the Batman movies he would always kill the villain, and I was like, well, you know, kind of the whole mythos of Batman is he fights crime with both arms tied behind his back, and he's that good, and that he doesn't have to kill because he's so damn good. That's beneath him. And so I always loved that about the comic book character, and it kind of bothered me a little, not too much though. When it comes to Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, it bothered me more that they were terrible. But I didn't totally, the Michael Keaton ones, one thing, Tim Burton just creates a universe that you just go, okay, I'm accepting everything you tell me. Because the movies made no sense, really. If you can't dissect those movies. Like, a critic can't just walk up to Batman and Batman Returns and go, okay, I'm going to use the same brain that I use to dissect any other movie. I watched Batman just the other day on Blu-ray or something, and really paid attention. I was like, that script makes no sense. Like, it's almost a nonsensical type thing. Like and I was like, it's like poetry is what it is. It's not really a script. Like, I was like, Vicky Vale and Bruce Wayne only had one date before he was suddenly like, she's the love of my life. But you never question that. You go, no, they've been together a long time. And it's like, no, they haven't. And the script had tons of stuff like that. But the way the dialogue was delivered, you don't actually know what they're saying half of the time. And sometimes I don't even think they did. There's that kind of famous scene where the Joker says, I'm of a mind to make a moogie. And it drove people crazy. What's a moogie? Come find out, he had that that makeup stuff on.
Yeah.
He was supposed to say, I'm of the mind, no, I'm the type of guy that makes a movie, or I feel like it's something like that. Had nothing, not what he said. Who knows what he said, but nobody even questioned it when they're watching the movie. When I was a kid, the very opening scene, when the two thieves are on that roof talking, I had no idea what they said. And I watched that movie thousands of times as a kid. I had a little VHS and I just play it, rewind it over and over. And, never knew what the hell they said. And, when I was an adult, I was like, sat down watching it. I was like, that is the weirdest. It's the best example of Tim Burton's Batman movies where the two guys are sitting there. He goes, what about, I think it's Johnny Dobbs or something. He goes, what about Johnny Dobbs? He goes, oh, Johnny got ripped and took a walk off the roof. All right, no big loss. I never knew what he said. And I finally broke it down as an adult. I was like, Johnny got ripped and took a walk off of a roof. All right, no big loss. But every line is delivered so fast that worked. And it's ironic that now, like, Batman versus Superman bothers me so much because of little plot holes or something like that that really bother me. Yeah, but Batman works, and I think it is. Delivery is everything. It doesn't really matter what's on that page if the director and the performances can really just sail you through that. And I think that comes back to why some people like Last Jedi, why some didn't, BVS the same way, that it's whether that director could sail you through it. Because rarely is a movie going to be able to not have plot holes. I mean, it's just so rare because you got 2 hours to tell a crazy story.
And that's the thing with those movies or whatever. Everybody was up in arms about The Last Jedi and all this shit. Is only because it has a history, Right. Agreed. Yeah. Now, if this was just like a brand new movie, never been introduced, nowhere. I mean, this is a brand new property. It's just Star Wars. We starting right here with Force Awakens. I don't think we would have as much hate as we have over these movies now. Oh,
not at all. And see, like Batman versus Superman, it's certainly the same thing. Mm-hmm. And I found that Superman fans are much bigger into the DCEU than Batman fans generally. Not overall, it's everybody's different. But and I think there is a little bit that is some of the divide with that particular movie. That Superman is, I liked his arc that, it was, is very symbolic of mankind turning on the person trying to save them. That's been a thing throughout history. Mm-hmm. And so having Superman as that character isn't a bad idea. It's a good idea. And even when I watched Justice League, which I'll tell you the craziest thing, that after me not liking Batman vs. Superman, when I went and saw Justice League in the theater, I thought it was the greatest thing ever.
Yes.
I ignored the horrible Superman face, which on second viewing terrified the shit out of me. I was like, I
didn't even notice it. I didn't even know that was like a real thing. It's just like I seen the movie twice before somebody told me, or people started talking about the mustache thing. I was like, what?
Yeah.
And then I watched it a third time. I was like, holy shit.
Yeah, it's very jarring. Now I noticed all the bad parts when I watched it the first time, but for me, being a DC fan, I just want them to do the characters. And there's people saying, well, they shouldn't do it just like Marvel. And my problem is, one thing, Marvel's not doing it like Marvel.
Yeah.
Marvel's just trying to adapt the comic book characters as close as possible to a movie series. It's not a strategy. That's just what I mean. And it might be an older generation thing to some degree, that being a huge comic book fan in the 80s and 90s, it drove me crazy that they always changed them. I was like, why is Batman in a black rubber suit? It's a blue or black mask and cape with the gray suit. Why did they got to change it? Mm-hmm. And so all these things kind of nagged at me. Why does Batman kill? You're not supposed to. And so whenever the era began just recently with Marvel, really, to try to stay truer, kind of like, the first Spider-Man trilogy where he had the organic shooters and stuff.
Yeah.
I liked that, but I understand when fans were like, well, he doesn't really have organic shooters. I understand that because these characters are these comic book characters, and to a lot of fans, they're real, they are real. They're real people. And Peter Parker and Spider-Man is a very particular personality and behavior and way he does things. And so when they mix it up for movies, it does get frustrating. And especially when the movies don't totally work because, we've been told by Hollywood that these characters don't work on film because, and it's almost like, they're saying, well, they're not very well written. They're terrible. It's like, then why are you making a movie about them? Just leave us comic book nerds alone.
Well, then that goes back to what we were saying before about the Marvel shit. We was just like, all right, you got to make these movies or it's coming back to us. So, hey, hurry up and pump some shit out.
Oh, now that is true. And now with, and it is ironic that and I think because I'm such I was born a DC fan. My first comic was Batman. And so I've been reading. I've read a little bit of Marvel. I think Grant Morrison's New X-Men a decade or more ago, I was really into that. But traditionally, it's always been DC Comics. I'm much, much more critical. I know I know the characters and the story arcs and the storylines and stuff, and so I can pick them apart a lot easier. Maybe Marvel fans notice more inaccuracies in the MCU movies. I don't know. Other than the X-Men, I don't think I've really read many Marvel comics. So to me, they're all pitch perfect. But
because all this stuff is Greek to me. Like you can reference any comic book, and I'll be like, what the fuck is you talking about? Because I don't read comics. I've never read comics. I think the closest I've ever read to comics. Well, I mean, the only comics I've actually read were maybe the first 2 or 3 issues of Wolverine, like the very first couple. I had on digital somewhere, and that's how I found out he had a son that didn't like his ass, and they would beat the shit out of each other, and all kinds of stuff like that. Well, that's the far as my knowledge goes. I know of certain comic books, but I haven't actually read them. Like Deadpool kills the Marvel Universe. I've had those, but I never read them. And then like the whole Carnage USA series or whatever, I know of them, but I've never read them. It's just like I do a little research. I know about them, and I get the pieces filled in from people like you and other people that are knowledgeable about the actual comics, and that's kind of how I get my information about it. But like when I see a movie, like any of these movies, I don't know the lore, I don't know the backstory or anything. So that's why when I see movies like Batman versus Superman and Justice League and freaking The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, I'm not upset. I'm just like, wow, that was a pretty good damn movie. And then to even speak about The Last Jedi, they told you in that goddamn movie, the words came from Kylo Ren's mouth. Let this shit die. Let that old shit just fade away. This is some new shit right here that I'm doing. So fuck that old shit. Harrison Ford is dead. Yeah. Princess Leia ain't probably going to be in the next one that much longer. Obi-Wan ain't here. Vader ain't here. Fuck them motherfuckers. This is a new shit and you going to have to deal with it. That's pretty much what the Last Jedi was.
Yeah, and see, for me, and now that's 100% a real thing, that if you didn't read the source material to whether it's based on a book or an old play or whatever it is, your chances of enjoying a movie is going to increase dramatically. That's like I was I was a fan of The Crow, and I loved the Crow movie.
Yeah.
But man, the comic book was just a whole nother beast altogether.
Yeah.
And just recently, me and my wife went and saw Ready Player One.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that movie. I was like, oh my God, this is classic Spielberg. So I loved the movie. My wife hated it. Now, she had read the book.
Mm-hmm.
And when she told me about the book, I did go, if I'd read that book, I would have hated that movie too. Because they just arbitrarily, Spielberg's kind of notorious for just changing things almost because he can. And it'll he scrapes off the edges. Like he goes, oh, that won't have maximum impact. I'm just going to kind of grind that off.
Well, see, and that's the thing when you make movies, though. I mean, you got to do that. If it's not a franchise or something that you're going to stretch out over a couple of movies, you got to try to chunk and scrape and pound everything into, freaking 190 minutes or whatever the fuck you're trying to do.
Yeah.
And that's kind of hard to do.
Yeah, and it's like it's a balancing act that I think with the DCEU, they're kind of their biggest problem is they didn't intend on doing what they were doing.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to fans that have read the comics, they're going off on wild tangents in an era that's not a thing anymore. I think Batman versus Superman, if it came out before The Dark Knight or especially before Iron Man, people would have probably enjoyed it a little bit more because that was what we were trained to be. We were like, oh, well, it's different. It's not really has anything to do with the comics, but these new takes on the characters is great.
And I'm kind of confused right now because, like, all right, they did Batman versus Superman. They did Justice League. Now they're working on Wonder Woman, which is set in the 80s. And we was just present day with Justice League and Batman versus Superman. Because I know they gave us the Wonder Woman origin story. So I understand why it was way back in the day and everything. They tied it into current Justice League and everything. Now they're going back again to the 80s with her second movie. I'm just like, I'm fucking confused.
Oh, this is where it gets so good.
Okay, yeah, so, explain to me.
This is what I've been obsessed with. Now, you can replay this if I'm completely wrong later, but here's just my hypothesis of what's going on.
Okay. All right.
Now, there's kind of a web of things going on with it. So, they got rid of everybody working on the DCEU because it wasn't going great. And then Justice League, when it kind of tanked.
Yo, hey, I'm sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt the podcast. I know you're really enjoying it right now, but I had to refer you back to our ad at the beginning of the show for Studio headphones. Go to studio.com and you can save 15% off your order. I mean, they're high quality headphones for a fraction of the cost, and you can get even more in savings. Just remember to use that promo code 3R Show. Now get back to listening to the podcast. This is the good part.
That was kind of a wake-up call. Now, it's
hey, fuck that. Justice League was a good movie.
It was a good movie, but financially, that was not. They were thinking $1.5 billion.
Yeah.
It did not make that. And so they had a problem. Now, I feel that there's certainly evidence that Batman versus Superman and Suicide Squad soured people a little on the DCEU, fans in general. They just weren't much into the DCEU, and Wonder Woman did good.
Yes.
But its first 2 weeks weren't. It was after that opening weekend, people go, well, it did great for a woman. It's like, that's not a woman. That's Wonder Woman, part of the Trinity. But they were treating it as if it was a Black Widow solo movie, and that, well, she did good for Black Widow. It's like, yeah, but she didn't do good for Wonder Woman on that first weekend. Now, that gives me the idea that if everybody rushed to see Suicide Squad, which, nobody really, that when, some, fans would have heard of Suicide Squad, but otherwise, they go, it's the Joker and some Harley lady. But if they all rushed that first weekend and then didn't rush to Wonder Woman with as much hype that was going into it, it gave me the idea that a lot of moviegoers hesitated because they felt like they got burned twice. Mm-hmm. And so they hesitated, but then when the reviews were stellar, they go, oh, well, hell, I'm going to go to this. And then you saw that huge rise up to $850 million. That's amazing, especially for a soft start. Anyways, moving on. And so then you hit Justice League. People hesitated the same degree, except for they did not hear great reviews and did not bounce back after that. And it had competition just slamming it on both sides. So anyways, I'm sorry, getting off track. So, Warner Brothers says, okay, that's a big problem. We put every superhero, all of our major superheroes together, and they made less than Batman by himself prior to the Man of Steel. That's a problem. And so, they know that there's something wrong. They get rid of everybody. Zack Snyder's out, well, before Justice League even launches. Snyder's out, and they get rid of the heads of everything. Hell, the head of Warner Brothers was replaced. It was kind of a big freaking deal. And they hire in a whole new clan of people. And now there was talk of Flashpoint.
Yeah.
And in comic book
I would
Flashpoint.
really like that. Yeah. I see like the cartoon or whatever, the Flashpoint Paradox.
Exactly. And in the comic book, what had happened is the comic book universe that had been going since the 80s, it would have been back in the day, like to the golden age in the 40s, comics had just kind of ran and bounced around. There was no continuity. It didn't matter. You just, it was Batman and Superman. Who cared? And then sometime in the 80s, they said, yeah, but Marvel has this continuity in which every story matters to the next. It's all this kind of ongoing soap opera. And DC wanted that, but they couldn't because they had really just been all over the place over, so many years. So they did they kind of rebooted where all these universes collapsed and it reset within the universe. And that had gone so long, and it kind of the same thing happened. The characters, it was the stories were so complicated at this point that they wanted a fresh start. So they had the Flashpoint, in which the Flash travels back in time to save his mother who is murdered, and does so, but just so happens to completely destroy time and space to some degree and reset everything. Yeah,
because in this, that's where Bruce is the one that dies, and his parents become Batman and the Joker. Correct?
Exactly. And so and then he kind of fixes things, but not quite exactly how they were. So suddenly ironically, this is right before the Man of Steel comes out, and so the New 52 starts. And so now it's Batman is he's a lot different than he was before. The DC universe has been happening for a lot longer, or superheroes appearing was for a shorter time. Superman had a collar. He was gritty because his adopted parents died in a car wreck when he was like a teenager. So he didn't have the same upbringing that original Superman had. So it let them get him a little grittier. Wonder Woman, it was her mother was raped by Hades or something like that. And so it made her grittier. And so they kind of went on this whole arc of everybody's a little bit grittier. And they redid all of the origin stories. Like Batman was almost entirely based on Frank Miller and Alan Moore writing before the New 52. And they got Scott Snyder, I think, to come in and rewrite origins. They were similar, but they were a lot more kind of technical, to where Batman wasn't so much of a kind of passionate person. He was more like oddly enough, kind of militant. He was building a military, and that's how they explained all the Robins and the Batgirl and all that stuff, was that his whole goal was to build this kind of military to fight crime. And this all went on. Now, Batman was super successful, but you had Wonder Woman and Superman was having problems because people didn't like the new iteration. And anywho, then they do Rebirth just recently that resets the characters softly to where they're going for a more kind of a softer tone, but they combined all eras together, and it's doing super successful. Well, all of this happening at the same time, the DCEU was based on the New 52 and suffering the exact same results, that people didn't like the darker didn't really like the darker versions of the characters, except for Wonder Woman, which wasn't based on New 52. She was kind of pretty classic, universal Wonder Woman. And so they go through the exact same problems that the DCU went through in the New 52, and they got to right now. And suddenly they're looking at, they have a whole new crew looking forward. DC Comics is really looking to change everything they're doing. And they were going to make a Flashpoint movie to do the exact same thing that they did to the New 52, to create the New 52, to basically reboot the movies without stopping, because they have Warner Brothers has the most insane problem that Wonder Woman cannot be rebooted. She cannot be recast without fires in the streets,
Yeah, no,
I mean, she's become
she's damn good. That movie currently now has a 92 on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah. And Gal as Wonder Woman is almost like an icon. Mm-hmm. And so they would get murdered if they tried to reboot that. And Henry Cavill, even fans who aren't crazy about how his Superman has been portrayed don't want him recast.
Yeah,
I mean, you can't get a guy. He's inhuman. I mean, Cavill just looks like Superman and behaves like him. Mm-hmm. And, he just needs that script that makes him Superman. And Man of Steel, I think, was a great beginning. I think they should have after Man of Steel, he should have become kind of the more classic Superman that we did see in Justice League. And that's probably why I like Justice League so much, was that was Superman just with a messed up face. I felt like instead of BVS, they really needed just Superman being Superman. But so they're in a really weird situation. They'd have probably liked all of the movies to have bombed critically and financially more than what they have now, because they can't reboot, yet they have something that's half broken anyways. And so, I mean, we've never seen anything like this, I don't think. I mean, when Star Wars struggled with the prequels, they just shut it down, Mm-hmm. Well, WB can't shut it down. Everybody's waiting for Wonder Woman, the next Wonder Woman. So anyways, they had the Flashpoint going to happen in the 2020 maybe. Well, that means they're going to be releasing movies 2 or 3 years that may tank and bomb and not fix what's the problem. And, Justice League, part of me feels like they purposefully tanked Justice League. They could have delayed it until the next spring and fixed most of its problems that really just hammered it, but they didn't. They decided, let's tank this mother and really give them a reason to be okay with a kind of a soft reboot. Well, so they were going to do Flashpoint. All of a sudden, Flash lost the Flashpoint. It's not Flashpoint. It's just going to be a Flash movie. It will have time travel, but it's not Flashpoint. That raised some red flags, because I was like, there's no way Warner Brothers is just moving forward and saying, oh, this will be fine. And then whenever they started showing pics of Shazam, I was like, wow, that is a tremendous switch up to the direction they're going. And then Ben Affleck wasn't going to be Batman, and suddenly they're doing The Batman. But it's also a prequel. It happens before, and all the little things. Well, whenever they showed the Wonder Woman 84 set, kind of them on set and stuff, Wonder Woman's running through a street of people rioting, leaping and jumping and running. They have the wires on her so she can, looks like she's running really fast and leaping. Only problem is that contradicts everything that was in both Man of Steel, or all three, Man of Steel, Batman vs. Superman, and Justice League. In BVS, nobody knew who Diana Prince was or who Wonder Woman was. They'd never seen her, never heard of her before. Bruce Wayne, the only picture he could find of her was from her origin, the 1920s, during World War I, that one photo. He did not have photos taken while she ran down the middle of a street in 1984. And there was no inkling that Batman goes, oh, you're that lady that was running down the street in 1984 in the armor and jumping, 20 feet in the air. No, he had no idea. And then in Justice League, it directly talks about how after Steve died, she left the public for decades.
Yeah.
Yet we know suddenly in Wonder Woman, she did not. And Wonder Woman 84, she didn't. So my speculation is, if I was WB, no, I wouldn't wait for Flashpoint, because I'm not going to just start releasing movies that tank over and over until I can finally reset and get viewers back in, back into the theaters. I'm going to move that forward as quickly as possible. I don't think it'll be Aquaman. I think that's too late. But I think that Wonder Woman 84 is set in 84, not because it's a prequel, but because that's actually the relaunch of everything. Now, there's also Steve Trevor there that died in the first movie. Some people think that might be his grandson. I don't think so. I think it really is Steve Trevor. And I think that...
and who he knocked up if that's his grandson?
Exactly. When did that possibly happen, and why is he a clone? And now the only thing is that in the original TV series, it starts out further back in time, and then the second season, a new television station got the TV show and didn't like it being set in the past, and they wanted it modern in the 70s. So they just suddenly Wonder Woman's in the 70s, and it's his grandson instead of him or something. And it was just because they, the different station wanted something different. So some people think that might be it. However, I don't believe it. I think that Flashpoint will be integrated into every single DC movie until The Flash, in probably like a comedic way, in which the Flash... What's that?
I kind of like that.
Yeah, and so I think that we'll see the Flash there. And what it does is, my guess is, they're going to rewrite what happens, in which right after Justice League, Darkseid shows up, which oddly enough didn't show up in Justice League. That they'll say that just Darkseid, the biggest evil bad guy ever, shows up and kills everybody. The Flash has just enough time to go back into the past to change things so that the Justice League is stronger for when he appears. And so my guess is he's the one that brings Wonder Woman out of hiding, and it'll probably be a brief scene in Wonder Woman 84 in which the Flash kind of nudges things in a different direction. Yeah, because if you think about it,
they did.
If Wonder Woman,
they laid. What's that? They kind of laid the seeds for it in what was that, Batman versus Superman, when the Flash showed up.
Right. Yeah, and see, I think that yeah, exactly. He already showed up once, so we know he was time traveling. And see, that's part of my theory is that he travels in time back in time multiple times. And actually, the first time it'll probably bend it a little, in which the Flash feels like he caused Batman versus Superman, the battle.
Yeah.
And which killed Superman, which delayed the team and set everything off on a bad tangent. Yeah. And so he goes further back, because if Wonder Woman is a public superhero, everybody knows her. So suddenly Superman appears. He's not struggling with the public because the public's already used to Wonder Woman. And so Superman's just another superhero. And suddenly Zod isn't nearly as big of a problem, because suddenly you have, 2/3 of the Trinity there when Zod shows up.
Yeah. And it's kind of
and Batman.
And it's kind of like what we were saying, like, all right, he already showed up in Batman versus Superman in that brief second. And even when, to kind of tie that together, when Batman propositioned him in the Justice League movie, he was so quick to accept because, he knows, that can be kind of like an Easter egg.
Exactly. And I think that essentially that's what we're going to see. We're going to see that that kind of seeded throughout so that they can reboot without losing the actors and the story they've already done, and trying to minimize how much they piss off kind of the people who are more religiously devoted to Zack Snyder by saying, well, those events technically happened, just in a completely different timeline that has nothing to do with what we're doing now.
It's kind of like the Fast and the Furious franchise.
Yeah.
How those other movies were like ill, and then they just kind of started with 5 and rebooted the whole thing and kind of tied them all together. Also, I brought this up before, what they doing with the Chucky movies. Now, the last two movies kind of tied all those other ones into it and kind of went back to the original theme all at once.
Yeah. Or almost every Terminator movie ever released.
And every Terminator movie will be like that because time travel is involved.
Oh, yeah. So you can always hit Terminator 1 caused Terminator 2 and all that. And I think they're going to, it happens in comics all the time.
Mm-hmm.
They reboot entire universes, and DC more. Marvel does it occasionally, but they try to stick to this one long continuity, where DC does it almost every 6 months. So it's not actually crazy, and it makes some sense. We're seeing it with Infinity War right now.
Mm-hmm.
Infinity War was one of Marvel's storylines to reboot the franchises, where they kill everybody and then suddenly magic, abracadabra, everybody's back, but slightly different, so that they can kind of reset some stories. Now the most interesting thing for me that I started to pick up on it a while back, right after Suicide Squad came out, we started to hear about Suicide Squad spinoffs, which was odd because now Suicide Squad is less divisive, but more panned. And so it's an odd thing that that all of a sudden it sounded like Warner Brothers' number one plan moving forward was just all Suicide Squad all the time. And but then I think that and it was really strong right after Suicide Squad. Like they felt like, well, BVS wasn't great, so Suicide Squad's kind of popular among some people, so let's really just hammer that. That's what we got. Yeah. And then Wonder Woman came out, and suddenly
Joker movie, right?
What's that?
They're supposed to be doing another Joker movie, right?
Well, that's where things get really weird. We've been hearing about Suicide Squad spinoffs for
since
the
damn movie came out.
2 years, and suddenly there was the Joker versus Harley. There was the Gotham City Sirens. There was now there's Birds of Prey. There was also a Harley standalone, and then there was Suicide Squad 2. But then whenever DC released the slate of movies, which they do every few months, and it's always different, they had Suicide Squad 2 on there and Batgirl, but no Harley or Joker or anything. So I thought that was odd because that was what was being talked about being in production, but they didn't make no announcement of it. Another year goes by, and they announced there was, and it's not announcements. There's never been an announcement. It's always, I think it's Deadline and a few other those movie websites talking about, this director and this writer are working with Margot Robbie to make these movies. But they're never confirmed, they're never greenlit, and then suddenly their name changes. Just last year, it was Gotham City Sirens, which is
Harley Quinn,
the comic book.
Harley Quinn, Catwoman, and
Ivy and
Ivy.
Cat.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, and so that was the big deal. And then DC Warner Brothers officially announced Batgirl. And that got a huge amount of hype, but then Joss Whedon got in a little bit of trouble. And so they pulled him off of it, but Batgirl was still moving forward. But Batgirl got a lot of hype that Gotham City Sirens, the Joker versus Harley, did not. It's really hard to get that many people amped for Leto and Harley, even though there are some devoted fans. You need a hell of a lot of them. And so all of a sudden, Gotham City Sirens turns into Birds of Prey, which the biggest problem is that has nothing to do with Harley Quinn. That's Batgirl, Huntress, and Black Canary. But that Margot Robbie is going to produce it. And that's all of a sudden when the light come on in my head. It's being produced by Margot Robbie. And every time Warner Brothers officially announce something, there's this announcement that there's a weird Suicide Squad spinoff with Margot Robbie in it, being produced by her. And it reminded me of Deadpool, to where Matt Miller and Ryan
Reynolds?
Ryan Reynolds. Whew, my brain blanked for a second. Ryan Reynolds wanted to make a Deadpool movie. They make a scene. They film the whole scene, all that. And Fox says no. And so they just released the video online and it goes viral. Well, then Fox has to make the movie and release it. I started to get the strong feeling that Margot Robbie and her production company were doing just that. They were trying to get hype, but not actually filming anything. By announcing these writers and stuff, all the writers and directors had worked on something that she had worked on in the past, kind of like a close-knit circle. But without actual Warner Brother greenlighting anything. And so now we've hit this to where her and Warner Brothers are kind of hitting this collision because, Joaquin Phoenix was announced as being in a Joker solo movie. And there were people just go, well, it's just a one-off, that it's not part of the DCEU. And then, there was talk that the Batman wouldn't be either. But then the biggest rumor coming out was that the Joker, Joaquin Phoenix's Joker movie, which is a totally different Joker than the Suicide Squad, is going to be in the same universe as the Batman. And then another rumor was, well, the Batman is the reboot of the DCEU Batman. He's replacing Ben Affleck.
Ben Affleck.
And suddenly it's hitched to Joaquin Phoenix. Now all of these are rumors, so you never know. We do know that the Batman is going to start filming next year. The Joker is filming here in a few months. The Joaquin Phoenix's Joker starts filming in a few months. And then a few months after Joaquin Phoenix's Joker is announced and people, the hype is through the roof. People are thinking maybe we get another Heath Ledger kind of style performance. It's not announced. There's another rumor that there's a Jared Leto Joker.
That's the one I'm talking about. Yeah. Right.
Well, the biggest problem with that is Warner Brothers might be insane, but you really can't release two Joker standalone movies with the same Joker, and they know it. They won't let Gotham call their Joker the Joker because they don't want people confused. And they're telling me that Warner Brothers is going to release two Joker movies. And this is where my theory started to build up steam, where I'm like, hold on. What I honestly believe is happening is that Warner Brothers and the guys that are head of the DCEU movies now that are, I can't remember his name, but they did all those horror movies and stuff, Paranormal Activity and Annabelle and stuff like that. Almost all the directors are from those movies. The guy that's heading the DCEU franchise he was the one that headed all of those franchises. So it's kind of like a whole clan of guys. Just Juan, what is his name? The guy that directed Aquaman. He's from it too. Almost every single one of them came from, they were kind of a group of buddies, and they've really dominated everything DCEU now. It almost looks like they're going in a different direction. They're rebooting Batman, introducing a new, more traditional Joker, and that Margot Robbie and her production company are kind of fighting that. They are constantly releasing these leaks of these directors and writers, but Warner Brothers has never actually backed that up. And even Suicide Squad, that was confirmed as being in production, not filming yet, but production, the director says he's going in a completely different tangent, that it's not going to be the tattooed Joker and stuff. And so there seems to be this insane conflict, which, Warner Brothers and the DC has been the most entertaining production I've ever seen since the BVS. The insanity that's going on, where they fire Zack Snyder and then Joss Whedon agrees to try to remake a movie in a year. One thing, I don't blame Joss Whedon for the bad CG and all that. I blame him for taking that job. The guy was already a legend for Avengers and Age of Ultron. To just completely wreck his career, trying to do the impossible. Who did he think he was? There's no director could have steered that. It was less than a year. It was December. So it was whenever they were viewing Zack Snyder's kind of cut movie that caused them to decide that they needed to bring in someone else. That was like December or something. And Zack Snyder didn't officially leave till March, but he was probably off the movie a few months before that. So max, he had 11 months to rebuild a movie. Refilm half of it is insane, what he thought he could do. And then, I mean, it was pretty amazing considering it was impossible. So the movie he made was, I mean, it was an amazing feat. It just really needed to be far more perfect. Few people go, oh, the movie wasn't great, but man, he did it in 9 months, so that's pretty impressive. Yeah. Like, well, yeah, but there's a lot of competition out there for something like that. But now this is all, and then this is all my crazy ass theory. I have no idea, but it feels to me that it's insane that we have Warner Brothers saying, "Oh, we're rebooting Batman with Matt Reeves," which he's amazing director. I mean, out of all the people, he's like he's the best to get for the Batman. And then Martin Scorsese producing a Joker movie. The director is a little questionable. He did The Hangover, so I have no idea what this movie is supposed to be. But and then you have Margot Robbie saying, "I'm bringing back Jared Leto with tattooed face." It's like, what is going on here? I really feel like though we got front row seats, the most interesting production squabble you've ever seen.
I'm down for it. I like it a lot. Oh, me too. I mean, I was so entertained by the whole fighting that went throughout all of Justice League. And, you know, I feel bad for people when things don't go, you know, correctly. That's, you know, not great. But so much of this is self-inflicted that I'm just like, well, you know, that's kind of their own fault. They just refuse to listen to anybody. And so I don't have to feel all that bad about it. Yeah, best part of Justice League is when they all fighting with Superman and the Flash is just like running in slow motion and you turn his head and look at him. I some movies I'm just, you know, I'm watching it. I do laugh really loud when something's funny. Justice League, I was unbearable. Because whenever the Flash was running and Superman turns, I just stand up and I'm going crazy. And it is funny because my second viewing, I really was like, man, this movie is rough. It is so rough, and there's some jokes that just don't land. Like I didn't really like anything with Lois in it on my second viewing. The kind of Whedon has this thing about him to where he's amazing writer and director if he has somebody filtering him, because I don't think he has a natural filter, you know. He doesn't know when he nails it or when he doesn't. And in certain situations you can see if you go back and watch Alien Resurrection, which he wrote, he didn't direct it, it has those the director of Alien Resurrection didn't speak English. He was French. And he's amazing director. Everything he touches is golden, except for Alien Resurrection. Joss Whedon didn't have anybody censoring his script for like jokes that just aren't that funny, that maybe on paper sounded better, but just in reality are kind of cringy or awkward or something. Like, wow, that's not really funny, buddy. It didn't pull off. But the director wouldn't know either, because he has no idea what anything, you know, he knows what it means. He just doesn't know what, because a lot of them was like linguist things, ironically. So there was the scene that was the most awkward for me. Well, there's two that are classic Whedon kind of fails. Is they're trying to teach Sigourney Weaver's Ripley clone how to speak again because she's been cloned. She don't remember nothing. And he holds up a picture of a fork and she goes, fuck. And the scientist like smirks and goes, no, fork. And she goes, fuck again, right? Now, I don't know if I can't imagine that being funny on paper either. It was, and I have no problems with crude humor, with sex humor, with whatever, as long as it's funny or if a scene actually works. But in this case, it just didn't work. And then later, Ripley finds all the clones that didn't succeed, and it's a bunch of Ripleys.
Yeah, and exactly. And all the mutants and stuff. And she's setting them on fire, screaming and stuff. And it's kind of like a pivotal moment in the movie. And, which, yeah, it was very cartoony. So, but it was, it was interesting. And then Ron Perlman, who I love everybody in that movie. Like, I think the director, everybody, the writer was great. Together, they made an atrocity. But Ron Perlman walks up and goes, "Women," and then walks off, or something of that sort. And I was like, wow, that didn't work. What? Who watched that take and goes, okay, we're going to have this moment where Ripley, this, the definitive badass lady, only Sarah Connor is even close.
Yeah.
And goes in and sets her clones on fire, and they're these mutated things. The designer, and it is funny, every human that had anything to do with Alien Resurrection was the best at what they do. The designer was, I can't remember his name. Anyways, if you look at his stuff, it is haunting. But the guy that designed all the creatures, the newborn, and those clones, the guy's work is amazing. And I think he worked on, it's kind of a techno type music. It's a Apex Twin, I want to say. And he has this music video called Rubber Johnny, I want to say what it is. And it's this, I don't know, alien looking guy in a wheelchair, and you got to see it to believe it. It is wild. Anyways.
Yeah. Well, anyways, I mean, we've been on the movie tangent this whole time. It's damn near hour and 30 minutes. And, we just kind of started off right out the gate. What the hell do you do, man? Because I'm looking at your Twitter profile right now, and I see you do video game mods for like Skyrim, Fallout, Saints Row. And you animate. You're an artist, and so on. As far as your profile say, but what the fuck do you do?
That's an interesting question. I do all types of random stuff. Now
random.
Like to make money, nothing fun. I own a little tire shop in a small town. I fix tires and crap like that. But what I do, I make some money doing the things I actually enjoy doing. I certainly a jack of all trades. I do some. I do some mods that I actually have, like a Patreon. All my mods are embarrassing, but I make some money doing them, so it's not so bad. I do. Fallout 4, I did the Busty mod. It made boobs bigger.
Oh, everybody loves that.
Oh, I do see the irony of my life. Artistic things and like, that moment where you go, wait, do I actually exist? That's my favorite of all time. However, what I actually do is the most trivial, benign stuff ever. So yeah, Fallout 4, my big mod was I made boobs bigger. Currently I'm working on The Sims 4, and as you may predict, I'm redoing all the animations in Sims 4, adding breast physics. So all my mods have something to do with that, not on purpose. It's that I'm probably always late to the game, so by the time I get there, all the good things that I actually have the skills to do, somebody else did. And so that's the last thing I can think of. Yeah, I'm like, well, I can do the boob thing. That'll be popular. And it always is. Everybody loves it. Yeah. But, and then my other side thing, my other deal that, yeah, it's kind of like my main thing I do now. Animating. I do 3D animations and stuff. It's all lewd stuff, as you might imagine. Mm-hmm. But I do really enjoy it. I like creating any types of characters. And I used to be really big into, this is my sad story. I used to be really big into drawing comic books. I love drawing. I had stuff in art galleries because I did comics all growing up. And then when I was in my early 20s, I wanted to be fancy. So I just did the same thing, but on a canvas, and had stuff up in art galleries and all that. And I loved it. The only problem is I'm wildly bipolar. And come to find out, whatever part of my brain drew, but it had to be specifically like me holding a pencil and drawing triggered it like you wouldn't believe. I'd go through spikes of manic. I wouldn't sleep for 3 days. I'm just amped. And then depressions beyond anything I can imagine now, really. I can imagine how I made it through it back then. And it would just be constant. And I think it was so rapid for so long. It'd be 1 week through the roof. Next week, I could barely get out of bed. And then, and I struggled. I think that I was certainly manic depressive when I was a kid. Maybe less noticeable because kids will be kids. They're crazy. And then, but whenever I got about 16, it become like a lot more of a dangerous thing, because it was, one thing, I was able to run around and get into more trouble. So that, that certainly spurred it on. But, I had no idea, which was also a bigger problem. I had no idea that there was anything wrong with me. And I was just a normal person who believed in insane things. I'd wake up and swear I had a dream and I foretold the future, and I'd write it down. Mm-hmm. But a part of my brain that was logic kept telling me, oh, no, you're crazy. And so I was the rare crazy person that knew. So, it didn't get too out of hand. What really was the wake up call was whenever my friend gave me a movie, and it was, The Demons and Daniel Johnston, I think. And she goes, when I watched this, it's a documentary. She goes, when I watched this, it reminded me of you. And I was like, okay, I'll watch it. And I watch it, and it's a documentary about a guy who's batshit insane. He's a musician, he's a real musician from Texas, I think, Dallas, I want to say, Daniel Johnston. And he was extremely bipolar. He would see like a drawing or a comic book, and it would absorb kind of his reality. He would think he's the character, and that was when it got really extreme. But it would kind of come and go because he's bipolar, so sometimes he'd be normal, sometimes it'd really go crazy. And his escalated far beyond mine. It got, he attacked people and all this type of stuff. But his when he was on medication, he couldn't play music anymore, and that's what he did for a living. He was on if you know Kurt Cobain from the band Nirvana.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
He wore that shirt that has it looks like a hand drawing of an alien with a bunch of little eyes sticking out, and it says, "Hello, how are you?" That was the cover of this crazy guy's album. Now this guy got record deals from like Warner Brothers Records, big people, but he was crazy. So his manager got him a record deal because Kurt Cobain liked his music, so that pretty much nailed it for him. He tore up the contract because he said the record label was the devil. Mm-hmm. And he didn't mean as in, like we say, you're the devil. He meant the actual devil because he was insane. And he would they finally put him on medication, but he couldn't play music anymore as long as he was on the medication. So he'd stop taking it secretly so he could go play. Unfortunately, it got out of hand, and his dad had a little private plane and would give him a ride. He thought he was Casper. He pulled the keys out of the ignition and threw them out the window, and they had to coast to the ground. That pretty much ended his whole thing. Anyways, I watched this movie. I go, what the hell? Why does she think I'm goddamn insane? I was kind of pissed off. I was like, I'm not damn crazy. I'm an artist. That's how we are. Come find out, no, that's not. I was far beyond what probably was normal. And but then I had panic attacks and all this, and had to take this Zoloft because I'd wake up with a panic attack and fall asleep with one. And I took the Zoloft to stop panic attacks. After 6 weeks, it takes 6 weeks to kick in. After 6 weeks, suddenly my mind clears and I go, holy shit, I have been insane for almost a decade. And I had no idea. I had not the slightest clue. And the biggest problem is, even to this day, if I was to sit down with a pen and paper, even though I drew my whole life, and start drawing, if I do it more than a few days, it's all coming back. Like I get panic attacks and I don't know what it is. It's just probably a deformation in a part of my brain that processes drawing. I can do literally anything else. I can animate, 3D model, whatever. No problem. Play music, no problem. It's the second I start trying to draw something with a pencil, whoop, I go batshit insane. And so that was a huge struggle. The whole life was I was going to be a comic book artist. I'm a writer. I write my own comic books and then I draw them. And I got tubs and tubs full of comic books. I did the first issue or two or something like that. I was never probably good enough, but, you know, decent for the time. And so then all of a sudden, you know, if I do it, shit's going to get bad. And so, and if I'm on the medication that subdues the bad, I can't draw no more.
But
because it's actually
you say you had no problem doing the 3D animation. Have you ever thought about doing digital drawings, or is it just like specific to the physical act of you like sketching some shit on something?
I'm not certain. I know that I'm terrible at digital drawing. There's something about the feedback.
Now. Yeah, I'm learning right now. I just got the new iPad with the Apple Pencil, and I fucking love it. You know, I'm just starting to get into the drawings and everything. I downloaded a whole bunch of apps that people on YouTube recommended, and you know, I'm just learning it. And you know, I drew as a kid too. I wasn't really good at it. I can copy things pretty good. But, like now I'm just kind of like rediscovering it, and, it's all cause like pencil and paper to me, like I almost would rather the digital aspect of it, because the Apple Pencil, I mean, it has like the slightest bit of, delay. Like, I mean, you wouldn't even notice it unless you was just like, no shit, just like sitting there and staring at it. You know, that's how small the latency is. Cause I don't have the big Pro iPad. With the Pro iPad and the Apple Pencil, there's no latency at all. You put the tip to the screen and the line is there. With, the new model that they came out with, the one that's for like, $300 that works with the pencil now. I mean, there's like the slightest bit of latency and everything, but like to me, cause like I'm a novice, I really don't notice the shit. And I really enjoy doing the drawings and using the paint brushes and all kind of stuff. And, you know, if I could recommend that to anybody, I would do that. Yeah.
And I think that cause I actually, I mean, I drew every day constantly. I draw 3 or 4 pages of comic books and then I just draw. And, I did that probably till I was 25 or 26 or something. And, cause I kept on kind of trying to draw, and, I could still sit down and draw a picture, no problem. And it takes a while. I mean, I bet it's probably more than a few days. I bet it'd have to be 2 weeks or 3 weeks of drawing. But, and probably the biggest thing holding me back from getting back at it, the level of how good you got to be to like actually do something. It's through the roof. Todd McFarlane really screwed everything for everybody, because once he entered the scene, you know, suddenly serious artists go, whoa, what the hell is this? You know, Spider-Man shooting that web and there's like hundreds of these little, you know, threads running through it.
Yeah, that's
and then
insane.
Jim Lee, you know, doing his thing. And nowadays, you see, and you look at what these people did before, and you're like, what the hell are you doing drawing comics? I mean, there's some amazing artists, and not that matters. I mean, there's always, I didn't draw Batman or nothing like that. My stuff was very bizarre. And I tried to draw superheroes, but I always go weird. And so I would never be actually in like competition with these guys. I'd never be the guy they chose for a Batman comic book. I'm more the R. Crumb type stuff, really oddball. But my biggest problem now is I never drew because I like to do it. Like, I don't actually like the act of physically drawing. I want the drawing.
Yeah.
I don't care for making it. And so now that I've gotten into CG and stuff, you can, anything in your imagination, you can create photorealistically. And that's essentially what I do. The thing I've really got obsessed with is I have this character called Honey, and she's just this, you know, like redheaded girl, and you could almost, it's kind of, it's not entirely not Pixar kind of type stuff.
Is it the one on your profile?
Yeah, that's it. And so then I got obsessed with, what if a cartoon character was photorealistic? Now, this is very divisive of an idea. I've had tons of people go, dude, that's just creepy, like, you know, uncanny valley. And I'm like, that's where I live. I always loved that. I was always obsessed with it, creating something that's just different, you know, that weird thing. I don't know what it is, but, and I found enough people that, I have a Patreon, where I release all this type stuff, and you know, I got a little collection of fans that, you know, seem to like what I do. And for a long time I struggled with that, because I was, you know, do I want super success or just to do what the hell I want to do?
Yeah.
Come find out, I don't think I can do anything else. I'm not going to say, you know, some people say, well, I'm not going to sell out. No, I can't. I don't know what's wrong with me. I couldn't, if someone said, hey, we'll give you $4,000 a month, all you got to do is completely different than what you want to do.
Yeah, I know. I mean, that's the crux of everything, right?
Yeah, I would want to, and just not be able to do it. I just can't. My brain don't work like that. I'm fueled entirely by a passion to do something. I have zero work ethic. So if I'm not just obsessed with it, I just can't do it. And so, you know, and that's really, you know, where you see artists, that amazing artists, and you're like, why does the guy that can barely draw something like, you know, Wolverine or Batman and stuff, you know, every once in a while you open a comic and you go, yikes, what in the hell happened? Usually it's like they hire a really good person and then they need to take a vacation. So like there's 2 issues that look like they were drawn in MS Paint or something. And you're like, what the hell just happened? The reason that guy got the job was because he will do that in a month, and he doesn't care. He's a machine. He can make this comic good enough and on time, no problem. Because my favorite artists have no work ethic, but are amazing. And I wouldn't say they have no work ethic. I don't know. I just know that they don't like doing interiors often. And like Adam Hughes, his interiors were amazing. He worked on the Ghost for Dark Horse, and he did interiors, one of the rare times he did. They was amazing interiors, but he only wants to do covers, and hell, I don't. I understand he can draw one picture of a character and get paid probably more than the guy that drew all of the pages of the interiors. But but so, you know, that's where my whole life kind of been doing on that thing, to where, and then it become even, you know, more recently, past few years, more of that, you know, it's really gotten more into my head. You know, you got to do what you want, and not everybody's going to be famous, and not everybody's going to be actually not everybody's even going to make a living off of what they want to do.
Yeah.
But it doesn't even matter, because, well, hell, half of the greatest people didn't make the money while they were alive. It kind of sucked. They died thinking, well, this sucked. And then, you know, Edgar Allan Poe become a freaking legend after the fact. And he never knew what was going to happen. And so, you know, the passion has to drive you. And if that's not what's driving you, people are certainly going to notice.
Yeah. Hey, man. And like,
yeah,
this whole conversation, I mean, I'm gonna be open with you or whatever. I mean, it's just like, I've enjoyed everything you've said this whole hour and 47 minutes. It's just like,
yeah,
you are my ideal guest. You got a little bit of the random in you, as far as like you here and there and you're everywhere and whatever. It's just like, I like to hear people talk. So like, I asked you a question an hour and 47 minutes ago, and you just been going ever since. And I really fucking love that, man. But let me tell you something funny though. Cause like, I've been back and forth, you know. I was on the phone. I was looking at your profile, because that's kind of where I stopped you and asked you like what the fuck you do and shit. And what's weird, this whole hour and 47 minutes that I've been listening to you talk about, you know, everything, Margot Robbie, Batman, you know, comic books, all this stuff. I'm on your Twitter profile right now, you know, and if anybody knows how to use Twitter, go to Tonicmole's freaking Twitter account and kind of listen to the things that we talked about on this episode. And if you go to his profile, you go to where it says tweets, tweets and replies, and you press media. Now, media, this is all the GIFs he posted, all the little video clips he posted, pictures he posted. You can see all those things in sequential order. Just about everything you talked about in this last hour and 48 minutes is in your fucking media stream. It's like not in chronological order from how you talked about it, but some semblance of everything you talked about within this damn near 2 hours is in your fucking media stream. And it was like, I'm serious, man. It's like Superman is the very first thing you see. You scroll down, you see Margot Robbie. You scroll down, you see fucking Kurt Cobain. You scroll down, you see fucking Batman, the Michael Keaton Batman with the two different freaking Batman suits. Goddamn, the Joker, Jared Leto's Joker. Fucking everything that we've talked about somehow, some way is fucking in your goddamn media stream.
Yeah, that's true. And it's probably because it was just still on my mind. And so I had to prioritize with, what was I thinking about last? Oh, yeah, I tweeted about that. And I'm legendary for you only have to wind me up and just let me go and I'll ramble for hours on end.
Hey, that's the name of the show, man. Random Ramblings.
That's right. That's right.
And that, yeah, man, I mean, I really freaking enjoyed it. We can be here another hour and 50 minutes or whatever. But unfortunately, I got to go to work in the morning and I got shit to do before I go to bed. So, man, hey, like, this is probably one of the better decisions I ever made, just to grab your random person and bring you in and let you run your mouth, man. I really enjoyed this, dude.
Oh, yeah, I had fun. It was good.
Yeah, man. I done said your name like 38 times before now, but where can everybody find you on Twitter, Instagram, wherever you want people to find your art, your train of thought, your pictures, everything? Where can people find you on social media?
Well, purposefully, if you type in Tonicmole, you will find everything that's me. So I'm Twitter at Tonicmole. Everywhere else, Tonicmole. If you go on your Xbox One, I'm Tonicmole. If you're on a PlayStation 4, I'm Tonicmole. And so that's really pretty much become my official name. So my Patreon is Tonicmole, and all my mods start with Tonicmoles, whatever. And so, yeah, you can literally find me anywhere. Go to search members, type in Tonicmole, and you'll find me.
You need to step your Instagram game up. You only got 6 fucking pictures.
I've never been into Instagram, but then all of a sudden I literally I think I just started like a month ago, and I don't do like selfies and stuff. And then I feel like, the shit I post is literally stuff I find online. And so I was like, I don't think it feels appropriate. It feels like I should try harder. So I'm going to really try harder on my Instagram and actually post art. I have an endless amount of art that I've created in my lifetime, and I put it in little Tupperware things and put it in my attic. I really need to utilize that, and Instagram would probably be the best place for it.
Do it. Here we are, 1 hour and 50 something minutes in, and I'm telling you to do it.
I'm doing it. I'm going to do it.
Exactly. I just followed you, so I'm be holding you to it.
That's right. You can check up on me.
But yeah, man. Hey, man, I appreciate you giving me your time. I appreciate you telling me all these stories and blowing my fucking mind. Just the way you passionately talked about all these things. I have the majority of the movies that you spoke about. I just recently bought the whole fucking Superman and Batman movie collection on Blu-ray. It's sitting right here to my right now. And just the way you was talking about Michael Keaton and the motherfuckers, it make me really want to crack this bitch open right now. But unfortunately, like I said before, I got to get my ass up and go to work in the morning.
Yeah, we both have real jobs.
Yeah, man. But I can't say how much I appreciate you enough. And,
oh, yeah.
Thank you for being here, man.
Oh, yeah. I love it. And what you do is awesome. It's good.
I'm fucking dead ass serious, man. It's just like, I really like people like that. People that can just ramble ad nauseum, just so about anything and everything. I mean, it's just like it captures my imagination or whatever. And I mean, it just like it gets me motivated. It gets me amped up, man. Make me want to draw, fucking watch movies, fucking make movies, all that shit, man. It's just like, God, I mean, what can I say about that? I've really appreciated his time. I've said it like 38 times within the conversation that me and him had, but there it is. That was Tonicmole. I didn't even ask his origin story. We talked about a lot of comic books and everything, but I never asked him his origin story about the name. But, hey, we on Twitter. I can, find him. I can track him down and ask him in the DMs or whatever. I'm not sliding in that motherfucker because that's, that's nasty. Hey, this episode has been brought to you by Studio. Go to studio.com and get you some bomb ass fucking headphones with, 15% off if you use the promo code 3R show. Hey, get you some motherfucking hooks, rubs, and spices. And you can get 10% off your order if you use promo code 3R show. Sprinkle some motherfucking hooks, rubs, and spices on your goddamn Studio headphones. That would probably fuck some shit up. I wouldn't recommend that, but maybe you can listen to some music through your Studio headphones hooked to one of your favorite mobile devices, whether it be through the aux cord or Bluetooth, because you have that capability with Studio headphones, whether it be the freaking Regent over the ear joints or the tray, the freaking, the ones that go around the neck, Bluetooth joints go in your ear. And they even got some wireless Bluetooth earbuds, which I'm extremely interested in. And I might want to try to cop me a pair. I use my own promo code, give me 15% off. And what's cool about them, I mean, none of them are over $109. So I think that's the most expensive pairs, the $109 ones. That's the like individual wireless Bluetooth earbuds. I mean, there's no string that goes around the neck, cables or anything like that. They just go straight into your motherfucking ears. So I really like those, and I'm gonna have to cop that. Yeah, man, it's just do what the fuck you love, man. If you love doing a podcast and you ain't got no motherfucking listeners, it doesn't fucking matter. Just do it because you love it. Goddamn, if you like to draw the shit out of everything. Just draw on paper, draw on napkins, draw on Post-it notes, draw on the wall. If you ain't written some shit, you ain't got to report to your landlord, and you ain't got to repaint over that shit if you ever leave that place. Goddamn, if you into digital, goddamn 3D modeling, 3D model your ass off. And after you 3D model your ass off, 3D model you a brand new ass to put that one back on where the one you 3D modeled off. Oh man, I feel good. That was a great episode. You may not think that because damn, I was barely interacting. I'm honest with you, man. It's just like, I love to hear people talk, that was like a joy to me. That this 2 hours here on this podcast was just like absolute bliss for me. It's just like, I don't know. It's just, I guess it's like, cause I didn't really have to do too much work. You get some of those interviews or, people that you talk with, you be like, hey, what do you think about time travel? He was like, it's cool. So, you want more, you ask the questions because you want their full, unadulterated thought process and everything. And, I've been guilty of that in the past. I mean, Mrs. B. Rob can tell you that shit. It's just like, what do you think about this? I'm like, it's cool. And she would be pissed to no end at me or whatever. And, I've come to realize that, if somebody asks you a question, most of the times it's not just a yes or no answer. It's just like there's more that needs to be said and everything. So that's a good relationship tip. So if lady asks you something or your guy asks you something, give them as much info as they can stand. Oh man. I'm gonna go ahead and get out of here because I got some shit to do. And as I was saying, I gotta get up and go to work tomorrow. You can find me on Twitter at It's B-Rob. It's ITSBROB. If you want to talk professional wrestling and any other general shenanigans, that's the place you do it. Also, the show has a Twitter. I'm tapping my leg. That's annoying. The show has a Twitter. You can follow the show at 3R Show. And if you're hip and trendy, you can follow at 3R Show 2. That's TOO. You can follow me on Instagram to where I walk the hallowed halls of Walmart. And, you know, check out the IGTV video that I did. You know, I did a vertical video with some green screen effects and everything. I've had this idea in my mind, you know, within the past 24 hours or whatever. I'm thinking about doing another IGTV video and doing like incorporating some kind of sketch work with it. You know, I don't know how that's going to turn out or whatever. I have the idea in my mind. It's just the way I have to set it up. You know, I don't think the sketch part will be hard to do because it's just me kind of narrating the thing. But we'll see. You know, there you go. Here I am trying to create content for you all, you know, to entertain you or fucking just prove to myself that I can do the shit if I choose to. You know, that's the conversation that I had on the last episode. It was just like, I'm tired of telling motherfuckers they suck. You know, I'll give you some honest feedback. You know, I can tell you what I think you're doing wrong or what I feel you're doing wrong. But I mean, who the fuck am I? You know, if you ask my opinion, I'll give you my opinion and, you know, you take it for what it's worth. But I'm tired of telling people they suck because let's just think about it. We talk about all these mumble rappers. We've had this conversation before. We talk about the mumble rappers and how they garbage and everything like that. A quick remedy for that, like straight up, don't listen to the shit. Just turn the fucking shit off. You know, if you're not listening to it, you can't talk shit about it, you know? And then the other aspect of it is, you know, I've said this is just like, what the fuck are you doing? You know, are you fucking producing beats? Are you writing rhymes? Are you freestyling? Are you doing the shit? No. So shut the fuck up. So, I mean, I don't know. It's like, it's almost like professional wrestling to me. I look at it through different eyes now because I actually done professional wrestling training. I've actually been clothesline, drop kicked, suplexed, you know, flipped into the ring the hard way. All this bullshit. I've actually done professional wrestling training. I've been beat the fuck up before. I know that shit hurts. So, I mean, I kind of look at it through a different eyeball than somebody who has never done the training would, you know. Oh man, this shit fake. But you never damn jumped off the top rope and landed on your fucking back. You never been backdropped or drop kicked or anything like that. So who the fuck are you, motherfucker, to criticize some shit? That's kind of how I look at it, you know. Don't be offended about what I'm saying. It's just my opinion. We live in that age now to where motherfuckers get offended of what other motherfuckers say. In the actuality, if you don't like it, don't listen. No shit. If you don't like what you see on TV, turn the motherfucker off. You don't like what you're hearing on the radio, turn the motherfucker off. There's so many other things that you can fucking do to occupy your time rather than sitting on your ass talking down on some other people's shit. Do what the fuck make you happy. If you wound up and consumed by the shit that you want to do or pursuing the shit that you want to do, you ain't got time for the other bullshit, you know? And then I guess that's kind of sucks for you if you're a media personality and everything. You probably won't have any content to talk about if you can't talk bad about some shit. So, food for thought. Anyway, you can follow me on Instagram. You can go to randomrobcast.com and you can find different ways to support the show. You can find my Amazon links. You click on it, it'll take you to Amazon, and you purchase some shit as you would do normal, and I get a little kickback. You don't have to pay anything extra on that. You can buy some merchandise in my merch store, which you can find on randomrobcast.com. You can be a patron like Brandon McIntyre, Glenn Abbott, and King Ajar, in which today, as I record this, is Brandon McIntyre's birthday. Here we go. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Brandon. Happy birthday to you. Yeah, I played the division with Brandon this past weekend as I record this. And we got our ass whipped. We had to call in reinforcements and get some other people to get us through a stage. We was playing the division. You know, I got it free with the Game Pass, and I got the season pass for like $16. So me and him jumped on this past Sunday as I record this, and damn, we fucked shit up and we got fucked up. But hey, man, happy birthday, B-Mac. Hope you enjoyed your day. And yeah, which this will be after the fact once you hear this shit. But hey, there it is. What did I hit everything on randomrobcast.com? It doesn't fucking matter. Go to randomrobcast.com. You can find all the ways you support the show. You can be a patron, but you know, all that money bullshit aside, you ain't got to do that. You don't have to be Brandon McIntyre, Glenn Abbott, or King Ajar. But what you can do, what I would ask that you do for this podcast or any other podcast that you listen to, and it's absolutely free, leave a review. Preferably 5 stars. But if you want to leave a 4, a 3, a 2, a 1, just don't be like, this shit suck. That goes back to what the fuck I was just saying a little while ago. If damn the shit suck, shut your fucking mouth, turn the shit off, leave me the hell alone. But if you enjoy it and you think it can be better, leave some constructive criticism. Tell me what I can do better, or tell me what you think is not working. And, you know, give me the opportunity to ignore you, as I like to say. But reviews, 5-star reviews preferably, but any reviews would be appreciated. Damn, liking, retweeting, subscribing, you know, driving those numbers up for us, you know, cause, you know, that might intrigue Studio and Hooks, Rubs, and Spices to come over here and they give me some money or some, kind of backing and everything. And that's some shit you won't have to worry about. All you have to worry about is sitting back, relaxing, putting on your studio headphones and listening to the podcast while you sprinkle some Hooks, Rubs, and Spices all over your delicious foods, meats, and vegetables and everything else. Sponsored by Hooks, Rubs, and Spices and studio headphones. But hey, man, I'm done. I'm sorry. You've been here for a while. You've done heard somebody else ramble, and now you're hearing me ramble, and I'm getting the fuck on out of here. I appreciate you all for listening, and I'll see you next time.
Hush Your Face is coming straight to your ears. A podcast network that's changing gears, bringing fresh funky pods with a fresh funky beat. A family of pods that are bringing the heat. There ain't no stopping us. Keep coming back to us, sick ass pods that'll make you hush. www Hush Your Face. www Hush Your Face. www hushyourface.com.